Today we're going to talk about just to actually continue from the first podcast. There were so many things we missed out or we left out because we didn't have the time. So we're going to focus today on Zarina talking about what was her decision, what made her come to that decision to actually go and live in Sudan for all those years. So Zarina, I'll let you start and then I'll just come in every so often.
Okay, so good day, everybody. Good evening, everybody. What made me go to Sudan? Okay, in order for you all to understand what made me think that way, you have to understand my background. Now, when I was growing up, I was considered by the teachers to be a slow learner. And so in England in those days, in the 1970s, if you were slower than the others, they'd class you as a slow learner and the people basically wouldn't make an effort with you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My mum thought that, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just stubborn. If you want to do it, you will. And that was the attitude she took with me. Struggled through school. And then when it came to working, I had gaps in my knowledge because of not having covered the whole curriculum, especially with the maths. Yeah. Okay. Like many of the other students, because they classed me as slow in maths, so I didn't cover all the material. And that caused a problem when I wanted to work, because even though I'd passed the English and the humanities and I could do other courses, but every time it included maths, I'd stumble on it. And so then I couldn't get, should I say, a proper job. I'd probably get temping work or entry-level, low-level work, maybe. And then because of all of that, when I did certain jobs, I had the issue of confidence because of all the labeling that went on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also being in a large family, and I was the youngest one. My siblings, there is a 7-year gap between me and my youngest sister. Well, the one that's older than me, there's a 7-year gap. So obviously there are issues around that because she was a big woman by the time I was going to school. Yeah, she's getting ready to leave home. And so all of that being, should I say, isolated, alienated, because she would hang around with her sisters and brothers her age or nearer her age, whereas I was totally out of the loop. And so I had all these issues because when I was small, she was growing up. She'd grow up through being a teenager and all of teenagers' behaviors. And I'm basically a baby in comparison to her. And so I took all that personally. And so therefore believed, like the teachers were saying, I'm a slow learner and I'm stupid or what have you, not realizing that she herself, she was a teenager just growing up and acting out how teenagers behave when they find a sibling much smaller and slower than them, and they want to go off with their mates and they have to take care of you or whatever it is. Siblings growing up, children when they're older than you are, when there's a gap. Anyway, so I took those feelings and thoughts and beliefs with me, not knowing how the mind works and all the emotions and all that stuff. It's just that, I just felt bad. And so when I went to college and did jobs, it reflected on me because I was unconfident or inconfident. I was unconfident. And so therefore it reflected on me like as if I was incompetent.
Okay.
And it wasn't, it was just to do with lack of confidence, not realizing that when you have confidence, you don't necessarily, doesn't mean you know how to do everything. It means that you know that you will learn how to do everything and do what it takes to do what is needed, no matter how long that took, and do it. I had the false belief that I'd be too slow and something about me is just not acceptable for them to tolerate me like they would a normal person. I've got air quotes going on here, like a normal air quotes person.
There was a lot of background history up to this decision. But
otherwise, if I just said, "Oh, I went there because I needed to feel fulfilled," and all that, everyone wondered, "What are you talking about, woman? What do you mean feel fulfilled? You can just go up your mate's house or go off with your friend for a drink, or I don't know, go out." The issue with me is I didn't have friends as such. I had some friends, but few and far between.
Okay.
I didn't have strong connection and relationship to feel fulfilled and feel secure, not just in myself, but in my relationships and in my behaviors. That means problem solving, interacting with other people, dealing with problems and disagreements, how to agree and disagree, how to state my differences without making them feel that rejected or feel that, there is another thing. Many people, when they see that you're somehow unconfident or slower than them or whatever it is, they believe that they are a level or a step over you. And because of that belief system, I'm not saying everybody, a lot of people have it though. And because they feel that they're somehow more entitled than you are because they're a level higher than you are, or whatever it might be, whether it be in a job or in their confidence or personality, or confidence, because personality, a lot of people might act, the good Samaritan, or they might act the confident whiz kid or the popular one or what have you, but inside there's nothing like that. It's just all a show. It's just something they act to carry off themselves while they do their jobs or navigate through life. Anyway, so because of all of that feeling unfulfilled, I needed not just something different, I needed something meaningful.
Well, Zarina, let me stop you there to pause and think a while by asking this question. I mean, you've just given us a really good background or history to you leading up to making the decision. But how the experiences that you actually mentioned, there were so many of them. How were you taking this in at the time? How did you see yourself, at that time?
I saw myself as defective. That means, I saw myself, I'm a woman, a black woman in Britain, but somehow not like other women. That means even if the other women had black people there too, but somehow didn't see myself as matching up to them. Somehow cognitively and emotionally, somehow defective or lesser than them cognitively or in the job performance or in getting along. I'll put my air quotes up, getting along with others, strategies, skills. That was simply, I had knowledge gaps because I isolated alone.
So can you give us a time scale of how many years this went on for?
That went on even until I was in Sudan.
So
in Sudan, it was much less because
how many years
the culture is different.
How many years was this? Can you give us a rough idea of how many years this where you actually was going through all this emotional sort of like questioning and
Well, it started from when I was about should I say about let's say 8, and then right up until when I was in Sudan and I met you. I was still working for it.
Were you given any sort of like help? Did anyone sort of like identify?
Not really, and help myself, because those I've noticed when you read on the internet and watch the programs, or whether it be documentaries or programs on TV or stuff on the internet, that people would spend years talking and never resolve the issue, never feel satisfied. So that's when I can't remember. I went to I don't know if it was some sort of exhibition or something, and then I saw the NLP table to do. I don't know if it was to do if spiritual self-development or something. I can't remember what it was. It was in Birmingham, and I saw NLP. That's neuro-linguistic programming.
Sorry, Zarina, even with the NLP, there was still a process. You were still a long way away from healing or just to resolve.
Well, yeah, because I had knowledge gaps. And the reality is, back then, people, even though they had excellent change strategies like NLP, and I forgot the other one, there's one of them called change strategy, I can't remember its name properly. It's good, but they could not get to the deeper issues, such as feeling that because of my mental and emotional development, I couldn't interact and respond normally or acceptably, or attract a partner to love me and cherish me, to value me like people do their husbands and wives, or not be able to cope on a job, process the incoming information, know what to do. Should I phone them? Should I write a letter? How do I interact with the irate customer or manager? How do I prioritize my work? What needs to be done first? And stuff like that. Of course, I could produce the work, but I had difficulty how to organize, because I didn't know what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, because I believed I was broken, not realizing that if you don't know, ask the person next to you.
Zarina, in the first podcast, I want us to go back to there just quickly. You mentioned that you had issues. One of the issues was actually when you first met me, and you thought that maybe I will reject you or I wouldn't like you because you had issues with Black women. So I'm assuming that some of these issues that you were emotional, what do you want to call it, in confidence, not confident, was to do with relating to not Black women and other people in society as well.
Not only Black women, it was relating to anybody.
Right.
They'd notice that I'm psychologically slower. They'd notice that I get angry and I get hurt.
I tell you what, Zarina, what you're mentioning there, many of our listeners would probably identify with some or even most of those things you're talking about. So I think it'd be very interesting to let us know the point where you're at now, where you're working, and you're still having these unresolved issues, and you're not able to sort of like maintain relationships and make the necessary connections.
Well, that's how I felt. That's how I felt then, because I was so hurt. If anyone said anything, I'd be all defensive, and they would take it that I was having an issue with them, not realizing that it was all my stuff. And because I wasn't aware of what was going on, I could do nothing to change it. So I felt powerless. I can't change this. I can't make this go how I want it to go.
Right. So what was the next? What was the catalyst? Speed us up a bit. What was the catalyst from there to you get into Sudan? Something must have happened.
What happened was, I was living in London at the time. I moved from Birmingham, living in London at the time, temping. And a friend came up with the newspaper because he'd phoned me before and he told me, Zarina, apply for that job. Zarina, apply for this job, and gave me the phone number. Zarina, have you applied for it yet? Zarina, and he came up to my flat. I remember he came up to my flat that evening and put the newspaper on my table. He goes, Zarina, that would suit you. And he came with it, and I did. I contacted them, and when I went,
what was the job?
They were an organization, Sudan Volunteer Group, and they're volunteers that go and teach English. Because Sudan before it used to be English, everything English system, education system.
What year was that?
And afterwards,
what year was that?
When I went to Sudan.
No, when the newspaper with the job. What year was this?
That was 1999.
Okay, good. Good to have a time frame. Keep going.
Yeah, I think this all happened quickly. It's 1999 because I was in London then.
So you went to the community hall of the school,
and so where they had food and things like that, and the people were there, Sudanese there, and they interviewed me. I have the ability to speak French, and my French is even worse than it was then, which is dismal. And I've been living in a Muslim country, etc. Anyway, she took me on.
I mean, took you on is a big message in there. It took you on, that means that you were they were asking you or saying yes.
And she was a woman as well. She was a woman.
We want you to go to Sudan and volunteer and support people. Yeah.
And it just Natasha, didn't register. I thought I was missing either the video, the internet, the connection cut, or the electricity jumped, or whatever.
That was like another divine.
I was missing a part.
I think that was another divine intervention, because it was an intervention that you needed, because you were going through so many things that weren't working in your life, emotionally in all sorts of ways. So this thing it happened at the right time.
Yeah, that is a higher hand.
What was the process from there to going to Sudan? What did you have to do?
Well, the process was first to get myself back down to earth and be able to sit up straight and stand up and walk straight.
Right. Okay.
Right. And then you got the document, they give you your papers, don't they? And then you do what it says on the list. Go to the doctors, have your inoculations, make sure you got your passport ready, so you make sure everything is ready.
Okay. And between that time, what was the time schedule for you leaving to go to Sudan?
I mean, that must have been August. I think it was August.
How long did it take? A week, a month for you to get to?
I mean, no, it'd probably take you about a month or something, or less.
Okay, so you were actually after a month of
I mean, but the thing is, I think that meeting must have been in, I can't even remember when it was.
A long
it must
time.
have taught in Khartoum University. I taught in Omdurman Islamic University.
And what were you teaching? What subject?
We were doing communication, because I didn't have teaching skill. I didn't have the teacher training certificate. I did not have a degree at the time, and so we were doing communication. So we'd sit whether it be under a tree or outside, or go and sit down on the bench somewhere, find somewhere where it's shady enough to work, or sit in the cafeteria and sit with a group of students talking. Just they need to talk, because they get academic English but no talking. They need exposure to natives.
So that's a very interesting story, how you actually got to live in Sudan or go to Sudan. Okay, so basically, you actually got yourself to Sudan based on the needs that you had, your emotional needs, and I think you said it was divine intervention. I think taking you to a place that you needed to be, because you were having a lot of issues, with
a lot of sadness and anger.
Excellent. So
it wasn't like as if my life was every day a drama, such as having problems with an abusive partner, or having bad people coming to my flat or anything. No, I was quite much alone. I'd go and do my jobs, but then I'd get so mad every time a job declined, not the application. I'd work there and they'd decline me, saying I was too slow, or I didn't know how to do this thing. And the reality was I had no experience, and I needed extra time to learn. And because of the confidence issues, I could have done the job even if I knew nothing, if I was confident that I could just do it. But,
so Zarina, was there a difference in being in Sudan? Did it improve?
Yeah, because in Sudan, people, even though there is no formal training, there is formal training, but not for on the job like there is in England. That's well developed. They basically put you in a classroom and you water tread, firefight, do your research on the internet yourself. You make sure, because I remember they covered some basics in teaching, and then afterwards you develop it yourself.
Wow. So do you think by you being thrown into the deep end like this, did it help you?
Know that made me learn?
Right. Without
worrying about confidence, because he had no time to think about confidence. He's too busy water treading. Right. So I did a course there as well. That was the first TEFL I did. But because it's not recognised in Britain, I did the TESOL and the TEFL, TESOL level 3.
These are all teaching sort of like courses.
Because of the way the work the environment is there, the people.
Yeah.
They'll tolerate you and they'll support you.
And also the culture of Sudan as well, even up to now.
Yeah, the culture is they support, they help each other.
Yeah. And
It's
I think
not,
that's what you needed at the time. You needed to be in
Yes.
an environment where people were supportive, loving, helpful, something that you were not experiencing when you were in England. And no fault of anyone. It's just one of those things that you need to be in a different environment, maybe in a community where you can learn.
And they're extended families and they have time to sit with you and talk.
Wow. So Zarina, in a nutshell, how did that transform your mind and how you
Because I felt fulfilled and happy and secure that I wasn't just going to get fired, that the people weren't going to ignore me and just dump me and let me struggle by myself, that I could solve differences people would make up, that whether I'm strange or not, I'm me, them, they're them, I can do the job and do the research, because I went and did the course and did my research, put my lessons together and all the rest of it, that I was doing it.
So your journey began basically where the healing process that you spoke about in the first episode of the podcast. Your journey began when you went to Sudan and you started to actually interact in a different environment with people whose culture were different, very accepting of you, supporting you and allowing you maybe to be on this journey of life at their own pace, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how long did it take? I mean, did you realize at the time, Zarina, and it's hindsight now looking back, at the time, did you actually thought that, yes, I'm really healing, I'm actually going through change?
Well, yes, you could feel it, because you could feel it at the time. I felt safe to talk about difficult or awkward things. And because I felt safe, of course, I made mistakes along the way, simply because there were gaps I hadn't developed while I was here, simply because of age gap. That's one thing. Another thing, the culture's different.
Definitely. Yeah. So did you find yourself sort of like slowly learning, picking up?
You just unfurl, because you're protecting yourself, all protective and closed off. You unfurl, open up, and then start expressing yourself as you see. And as you make your own mistakes and move on, you find that the people respect you as you are, accept you as you are, and they realize that, I've got my knowledge, they have their knowledge, I've got my gaps, they've got their gaps. And so I was just developing. Of course, the frustration was to do with the salaries and to do with proper training, because the companies would not pay for proper training, not unless you got the hundreds of dollars to go to Khartoum University or some other place online, or they've got different centers around Khartoum where you're paying hundreds of dollars to join.
But I think that what you needed at that time was being addressed, was being provided to you. You needed to be in a new environment, a different environment that was very effective and proactive and helping you to sort of like process information.
In your own way, in your own time.
And not feeling that you're not that gullible.
I have to do it only this way and this, or only this way and this way only.
So Zarina, when I met you in Sudan, you'd already been living there for 15 years before I met you, is it? So for those 15 years, can you just explain in a nutshell how you saw your development? In those 15 years.
Well, my development was first, I was always in work.
Excellent.
Of course, they had some issues in some schools that you go to work the next morning and find the gate locked and a police officer standing out there or something anyway. Or they had issues whereby what they really wanted me to have the qualification like some of the other teachers that I didn't have.
So how did you develop over those 15 years?
Well, in the end, I put my money together and went and did the degree, and then went back and did the master's MBA.
So basically, you did your degree and master's in Sudan. Something that can you imagine able to do that? Just going back to your time in England, could you see yourself completing a degree?
No, I didn't see. I saw myself as being able to struggle and complete a degree here. Yeah. But the reality was I was doing one, but I ran out of money and I just left the country. Too much financial pressure. I needed to be somewhere I could do work and then work my way of flexibility.
So what I'm seeing is, Zarina, step by step, process by process, you began to develop yourself in Sudan. From volunteering, teaching in universities, a couple of hours, I don't know how long it was, to actually having the confidence to actually complete the degree.
And that's when I did because one of the first things I did in Sudan was Arabic language.
Wow, that's true. So you actually studied the language.
Because I remember I'd already been exposed to learning French before, so this was quite good. And then I just continued doing other things and teaching.
So you're multilingual, Zarina. How many languages can you speak?
Well, I speak English properly. My French, I've forgotten a lot of it, but I suppose if I'm in a French-speaking environment, it will just come back over some days. And my Arabic is more or less fluent, but the fact is, I've been in England now for some years, but when I see Arabic speakers, I'll still be talking in Arabic.
I tell you, Zarina,
probably badly because I have a horrible accent. The accents are lovely.
Well, Zarina, as I was saying in the first podcast, that was one of the things that I was so appreciative of you. You were able to communicate with the people, the language. So when I was having difficulties communicating, I would always rely on you to be the spokesperson when I needed to communicate with the shops or with transportation. So that was really useful.
When you use the transport, when you take a rickshaw, in England they say rickshaw, there we say rickshaw. You have to negotiate the price with the driver.
Yeah.
And herein starts the drama and the fun.
Oh my word. It was something else. I have to say, Zarina, let me just say this. That when my first experience of actually driving in a rickshaw, negotiating the price, it was really difficult. Because, I was living in England since I was 13. England, there's no negotiation of transport price.
There's no negotiation. You pay that, whatever.
And that's like getting used to a different culture. And I must say, I used to either get you to speak to the driver. I used to ring you and say, Zarina, can you speak to the driver for me? Or ask you what to say. But eventually, I slowly was able to learn, looking at how you did it and other people as well. So that was very good for me.
And if all else failed, you just tell him a whole heap of bad word and walk off.
Yes. So you being in Sudan for all those years, 15 years, it developed you personally. Although you were still on the journey. You didn't completely get healed, but it was a start.
It was a big journey. It was a large healing went on. A lot of growth, a lot of healing and growth went on.
Yeah. So when I met you in 2014, you'd had 15 years already living in Sudan, going through a process of healing, getting to know yourself and really feeling good about who you are. So
that's true. Yeah. So I felt I was able.
Yes, you were able, but still, the process was still.
It was still going on.
And with everyone, no one is perfect. Even myself, no one is perfect. We're all on a journey. We're learning lessons that we need for our purpose in life, for the things we need to do. We have personal things, goals and targets, things we want to do in life. So we have to keep learning, isn't it? So that is a very good. I'm so happy that you're able to explain how you actually got to Sudan. I think people will be fascinated to see that it was divine intervention. It's a combination of factors, divine intervention. It was what you were going through emotionally. And I believe that, God sort of like transported you out of England because you needed to be away from this type of society that wasn't really helping you in terms of what you're going through. And I think you thought there was it came to a boiling point, I think, at the time that your friend brought that job interview. You felt that it was like a point where, something has got to change. Do you feel that was something that was happening with you?
At the time, I didn't feel that something got to give, but I was thinking what to do. I couldn't go back to Tunisia. I had to do something.
Right.
And I was beginning to think. Yeah, I was thinking. So, yeah, you're right. Thinking back now, yeah. I was thinking of what to do now.
Thanks for that, Zarina. I tell you, when I first met you and we started to talk, because, I mean, you don't know a person until you have a few conversations with them. But I must say, quite early into our conversations, I realized there was something there where you sort of like was troubling you. And although you were already on a journey and a process of changing and healing, as I said, you were still incomplete. So when I met you at the point where what I was able to provide in terms of my support, in terms of my advice, in terms of conversations, as we said, and I was able to, as I said in the first podcast, that I saw and heard from what you said, the things that you were going through, I'd already been through in England. And I'd come through them. So when I met you, it was like, my word, it was like I said, God, you sent me here for this woman, isn't it? Not to work in university or school. So I was so happy that, when I met you, I thought, you know what? I believed I was purposed here. And maybe not for the reason I thought. I thought coming to Africa, teaching in big university, that was part of it. God gave me a gift of teaching. So he allows you to use your gifting to gain finance, to pay your rent, whatever. But then he still has a bigger purpose. So I think the bigger purpose was meeting you, both of us meeting together and actually engaging in conversation, connecting and being friends and helping each other. So that's what I think. What do you think?
All the conversations we used to have in the cafes and restaurants. Now the podcast has gone live. It's like it's surreal, and you're wondering, it's like that fork in the road. When you take the path less traveled, you'll find some happy surprises.
I tell you, Sudan was a path less traveled. As I said, although I was praying to teach and work in Africa and live in Africa, Sudan was not even a part. It was not even on my radar. It was like Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya. So I have to say, people think I planned to go to Sudan, but you know what I mean. God had His plan, so His plan was obviously the main plan, and I followed that. So that's where I was meant to go to Sudan, and everything. So it wasn't easy being there, but what made it much enjoyable and smooth was our connection and us able to help each other. So we're still on the journey, but we're on a good path, and we're learning together still. We're having fun conversations and working through issues. And I'm hoping that this podcast that we're just talking on now, someone's going to glean something from it. Someone's going to learn and take away something from it, because I think we have something to actually say that will help someone.